Hello and welcome to a special edition of Let's Talk. We usually record at the Golf Face Hotel, but today for this special edition, we're here at the Shangri-La Hotel, Colombo. Today we're going to talk about a global organization that has been around for over 100 years. With 1.4 million members and 49,000 clubs in 200 different countries around the world, we're going to talk about the Lions Clubs International. And today I have the pleasure of talking to the International President of the Lions International Club, Dr. Patti Hill. Dr. Hill, thank you for being here today.
It's a pleasure to join you here on Let's Talk.
Thank you. So can you give us, to start off, can you give us a little introduction about the Lions International Club and what kind of work do you do and the kind of impact you've had over the years?
Well, Lions Clubs International is literally an association of Lions clubs. And so in these more than 200 countries that you've mentioned, individuals who volunteer in their communities come together as members of a Lions Club, and they do that for the sole purpose of doing good work. So our motto is "We serve," and that's true in every community where we have a Lions Club. Now, certainly around the world, there are many, many different community needs, and so we recognize that our Lions Clubs are quite autonomous. They choose the service that is relevant for their community. And certainly for more than 100 years, we have sustained that level of service for our communities, our countries, and for the people with whom we live.
All right. So you became a Lion yourself in 1990, if I'm not mistaken, and that was 34 years ago. What drove you to join this organization?
I probably wouldn't have joined except someone invited me. You know, I was aware that the Lions were doing good work in my community, and I was volunteering with a few other organizations, and they invited me to come and volunteer with them. What really attracted me to shifting my volunteer service to the Lions Club was the nature of their service, their relevance in the community, and the opportunity for personal and professional leadership growth within that club.
Right. And you were honored the Ambassador of Goodwill Award some time back, and that's one of the highest honors that you can receive in the organization. What is some of the key highlights and key projects that you have worked on over the years?
Well, certainly over the years I've been involved with a number of different services, but I seem to gravitate back to two key areas, and that is the environment and youth. And so within Lions Clubs International, we have a youth development program. We actually have several.
Of course.
But we have a youth movement called LEOs, where young people volunteer as members of a LEO club. Okay. We also sponsor youth activities in our communities. Quite often those are sports or recreational activities, educational support. Mm-hmm. We engage with young people to talk about peace. What could be more relevant in today's world than talking with tomorrow's voting citizens about peace and harmony in our communities? So we do a lot of work with youth, but we also do a lot of work to repair and sustain our environment.
So your theme as president has been changing the world. What does that mean to you? Well,
first and foremost, I think it's an affirmation for our volunteers, for our Lions and our Leos, that their efforts, the time and the effort they commit as volunteers really is changing the world. Now, quite often we're changing the world one life at a time. You know, one young person mentored, or one environmental project at a time, one community at a time. But because we multiply that by more than, as you said, 49,000 clubs around the world, we truly are changing the world.
And one of your initiatives under your tenure has been Mission 1.5. Can you talk a little bit about that and tell us what your vision and mission is for this initiative?
At the beginning of this initiative, our membership stood at 1.4 million dedicated volunteers serving as Lions Club's members. But I'm sure you've recognized that the needs in our communities are becoming diverse and they're increasing. You know, the pressure on societies to really come together and address the needs cannot be delegated or relegated to governments or other. And so we know that as we move forward, continuing to develop strong, healthy communities, we need more volunteers. Hence, we intend to grow our movement from 1.4 million people to 1.5 million in a very short time.
That's amazing, yeah. So one thing that you said was a key focus was the environment and sustainability. Haritha TV is a big advocate for safeguarding the environment, right? And we really appreciate the fact that you stand by this kind of cause. And what are some of the initiatives that the club has placed globally to promote these eco-friendly practices? And can you talk about some of the initiatives that stand out to you?
So globally, we are really focused this year and going forward on asking our volunteers to engage in environmental and sustainable work. And that falls under primarily 3 of the Global Sustainable Development Goals. Almost everything we do falls under one of the goals, life under the water, life on land, and life in the air. And as we move forward, individual clubs and national groups of clubs, like here in Sri Lanka, are developing their focus. So for example, in some parts of the world, tree planting, reforestation, and vegetation is a big part of what the Lions Clubs are doing. Reestablishing natural environments for pollinators, for our bees and other pollinating insects is critical. In other parts of the world, it's very much focused on our access to clean, potable water, because we know that many nations and communities are suffering from water insecurity, or where we have water, it may not be clean and potable. I want to give credit to our Lions right here in Sri Lanka, who are not only doing projects like cleaning waste out of the Hamilton Canal, to tree planting. And I've learned while I've been here about the importance of the me trees.
The me trees.
And their influence on giving us oxygen back into the atmosphere and really cleaning the environment and helping us reduce the impact of urban sprawl, where we've created climate bubbles. And so this work, along with green cities, is part of what's going on. Now I'm going to just say that we empower Lions Clubs to truly address the local needs. So in other areas of the world, they're working on reestablishing fish populations and other wildlife that have been endangered. In some parts of the world, the emphasis is on working with corporate partners to reduce our carbon footprint, as well as waste emissions into the air or the water systems. So advocacy and education are also part of our environmental movement.
Yeah, that's great. And I love the fact that the organization is looking at local needs and kind of working around their resources. Like you said, the me tree, for example, it's something that's local to us. So you mentioned also that your youth is a big focus. And I know you've mentioned a couple of times that leadership development is something that you really, really want to kind of drive. Why is that a priority for you?
We have always invested in our youth, mentoring them, giving them opportunities. But part of what we do, which is very unique to Lions, is that we teach young people how to do service in the community. So while there may be leadership courses for them to take, and we're preparing our civic and our corporate leaders of tomorrow, we're also teaching them the value of volunteer service and engagement with the community so that we have quality of life and they understand their role in not only preserving that, but enhancing it and making the world better.
That's amazing. So another thing that I read during my research was that you were a pioneer in the inclusion movement back in Alberta, Canada. And you've worked closely with people with disabilities. And you've also become the second ever female international president of Lions Club. As a leader, how do you encourage diversity and inclusion in the organization and in the world?
Well, diversity in our organization is something we've talked about, and it was an unfortunate situation in our history that when Lions clubs were first formed, we did have men and women in our clubs, and somewhere along the way, because in some countries women did not yet have the vote 100 years ago, then the role of women was removed from our association. And it only came back decades later. So the role of gender inclusion is very important. We know that men and women see the world differently, and we're also cognizant of different needs in our communities. So if we're going to have a truly healthy community, we need input and perspective from all genders. Similarly, we are inclusive across ages. We want young people involved in building and sustaining our communities and our environment, and we want people of a working age as well as retirees. So we see the need for diversity across age, gender, ethnicity, faith groups. We are truly a global association.
That's great. So Sri Lanka actually was the first country in the world to elect a female prime minister, right? But as women constantly were faced with multiple challenges, as you pointed out. What kind of advice would you share with our female audience today to help them break these gender barriers?
I think one of the things that we have to do is continue to be intentional about addressing the barriers that we find. In my generation, we were aware of barriers and we often just worked our way around them rather than calling them out. And so now I think it's up to us to educate the current generation about how you create gender equity and how you reduce barriers so that we have the best minds, the best potential being realized across our society. And so for young women of any age, I say surround yourself with great allies. That doesn't mean surround yourself with only women. It means build a strong team who support the ideals that you believe in and then move forward. Because truly, if we're going to address equity, women's rights are simply human rights.
That's right.
Yes.
That's amazing. So just want to know is this your first time in Sri Lanka?
It's actually not.
Oh, it's not, okay.
I was very excited to be invited by the local Lions to return here and to do some work with them. This is my third visit to Sri Lanka.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So how has your experience been so far?
It's fascinating for me because my first visit was 16 years ago. And then I was back about 7 years ago.
Wow.
And of course, your nation has been through a lot of changes in that period of time. I've seen the rapid move you've made into new economies, and certainly a few years ago when there were economic challenges. As a Lions leader, I was very aware of the needs here in your society, and Lions Clubs International Lions from across the water and our foundation helped to fund supplies that were needed during your economic crisis. But now you're emerging again, and I see everywhere I look around Colombo here, you know, I see the development going on. I see the optimism in the eyes of the people and the hope that I hear in the discussions that we're having. Now, even saying that, I need to comment what a beautiful country this is. And yes, I have traveled outside of just Colombo. You know, it's a beautiful nation. I'm not surprised to see tourism back on the rise again and that people want to visit your country. You also have a large diaspora around the world.
That's true.
You know, even in Canada, I have colleagues who I serve with who are from Sri Lanka, and your people are certainly spreading the word about what a beautiful place Sri Lanka is to come and visit.
Right. So Lions Club International has been in Sri Lanka since 1958. Mm-hmm. That's a really long time. So what kind of notable achievements or projects has the Lions Club in Sri Lanka contributed towards the global organization?
Sri Lanka has contributed internationally in a lot of ways. You have here outstanding leaders who have stepped forward and taken on leadership roles on the global level. In 2007, 2008, the Lions International president was Mahendra Amasarya from right here in Sri Lanka. And we have a board of directors that governs all of our work. And this year we're very proud to have International Director Mahesh Pasquale from Sri Lanka sitting on the board of directors, providing governance and insight and vision to where our association is going. You've also been a great partner for other nations. So what we are learning about delivering eye care service or remote village supports from the local Lions is being replicated in other countries as well.
Right. And how can the people of Sri Lanka get more involved with Lions Club International, and what advice do you have for these aspiring people to make a positive impact in their communities?
Well, I would invite people who care about their community and have the ability to give of their time and their talents to find your local Lions Club and volunteer. Get engaged in the service that's going on. Secondly, if there is a need in your community and you don't have a Lions Club to address that, let's work together and start a Lions Club dedicated to that need that you see in your community. Because we know that by bringing together diverse people from different professions, different backgrounds, and synergy that is created in a Lions Club provides really creative and innovative solutions for problem solving at the community level. So we want you to join a Lions Club. The Lions here in Sri Lanka are innovating and succeeding in reestablishing coral reef life. This is such a wonderful project that I've invited them to share this story of service at our international convention in Melbourne, Australia this coming June.
That's great. That's all we have for the discussion today, Dr. Hill. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I look forward to my next visit to Sri Lanka.
Yeah, likewise.
And at that time, I hope to see you as one of our Lions Club members.
Surely. Today we spoke to Dr. Patti Hill, International President of Lions Clubs International. We'll see you again on another special edition of Let's Talk. Thank you.